The moment I have personally been waiting for since we got the gameplay reveal is actually finally here. We get our first look at Veilguard's combat, not at level 1 and not solo without companions, but actually with more depth and detail about how you'll be interacting with your companions and using skill at a level that makes sense. Actually, high level combat, the thing that we've really wanted to see since we got the reveal. We'll get into my thoughts about the combat and how I think it looks and feels towards the end of the video as we go into delving into what we actually got to see. But I won't leave you hanging. I'll just say here at the beginning of the video that yeah, I liked it. I think it looks really good, and we'll get into more detail about why at the end. After we set up our rook and our companions, obviously showing off the inventory screen and how we get to really prime ourselves for the battle, the first little tidbit of action we get is all about assessing the battlefield. You do this by pausing the game, something that you're going to see a lot of. Yes, it's an action RPG. Is it action time with pause combat, I guess, instead of real time with pause? As we assess the battlefield, we find out that the Greater Ghoul is vulnerable to fire and resistant to necrosis. On screen, we can see a few different elements we've already seen in stills. On the left side, we have a combo opportunity for Davrin, another skill which looks like it might be how he summons his griffin, and then a third skill, but the one that we're drawn to is the combo opportunity, because it's highlighted with a green outline. This is how we know that this ability can exploit the vulnerabilities of an enemy, that fire vulnerability. At the top, we also have the options to command just Davrin to attack, just Lucanus to attack, or both of them to attack. On the right hand side, we have 3 abilities for Lucanus as well, and then at the bottom, 3 abilities for your rook. The ability in the center looks to be a combo ability as well, tying to the combo ability from Davrin. Unfortunately, or fortunately, it seems like whoever is playing the game might have roughly the same skill level as me. Because damn, this doesn't look that hard right now, but they sure are struggling. But then you get this. Which is pretty satisfying, and I can't wait to do it as often as possible in game. Kind of like in Jedi Fallen Order, all the time. In the next set of enemies, we're introduced to a new armor mechanic, a yellow bar that means those enemies have additional defense against you, but those greater Hurlocks are still vulnerable to fire. This makes me think kind of Inquisition, like if you saw a heavy armored creature and it had the little gray bars across their health bar, you knew that they were heavily armored. So it kind of sounds like it's just like this is a transfer of that from Inquisition to Veilguard. Our rook sends Davrin to attack the Hurlock by selecting this from the pause wheel because heavy attacks are the most effective against that armor. Not that it matters that much because your rook is quickly overwhelmed, causing them to use Spectral Bulwark from the pause menu, which damages enemies who land melee hits. This is also where we learn that enemies in Veilguard will have a stagger bar. Stagger is a mechanic I'm seeing a lot more in games than I used to. Perhaps it's like the Souls-like effect, but it also is a mechanic I really love because it rewards that full-on assault gameplay versus being more cautious, making you kind of pick which way you want to play, just full-on attacking, or should you stay back a little bit and avoid some damage. Now, one thing I'm curious about that I didn't see answered is if you could potentially have all those companions help you build up a stagger bar, or if it's individual. There is one thing we'll get to in just a little bit about how a companion can help with stagger, but that's not exactly what I mean. What I mean is, all those hits, do they all count towards that stagger bar if all 3 of you are attacking at the same time? Whatever the case, this takedown is really satisfying. In the next video, we get to see how Rook can benefit from buffs and debuffs, calling on Lucanus to buff them with Adrenaline Rush, which enhances Rook's damage stats. You do so again from the pause wheel. After using it, we get to see our first companion skill cooldown, 15 seconds before Adrenaline Rush can be applied again. But in the meantime, we're swapping over to Davrin to use a Heroic Strike, which applies the Overwhelmed debuff that makes a target take additional stagger. This is one of the first times we're getting to see active use of companions and their skills and their synergy in action, and it honestly looks really freaking good. I have been nervous about companion control ever since it was announced you won't be able to just hot swap to another companion, but this looks like a great deal of in-combat control. I will say though that interestingly enough, while BioWare has taken great pains to talk about your companions being their own characters, in combat, they seem to act more like an extension of yourself since you do control their actions rather than basically becoming them. I'm thinking of it more like Rook yelling commands rather than becoming Varric for a second, if that makes sense. Like in older Dragon Age games, you became the companion and you controlled them directly. In this game, you are still controlling your companions, but you're not jumping into them. Instead, you're just kind of telling them what to do. Oh shit, I just spilled water. That's gonna go in the, oh god, hang on, fuck. One of the feelings I keep getting from the combat as I watch these videos, especially the buffs and debuffs video, is that the game is a lot more pause and tactical oriented than I expected. I mean, how many times have I already said that then you pause and you do this in this video alone? I knew the wheel was going to be important, but within a 2-minute video, we're very often pausing to command our companion to attack or using our own abilities on the pause wheel. However, some of the cooldowns are pretty long, and it looks like you can actually lock yourself out of both companions entirely, as at one point we see that Davrin has a 41-second cooldown and Lucanus has a 6-second cooldown. This is perhaps to balance and keep you from just spamming their abilities, I guess, because I'm not entirely sure that they have the same kind of resources that you do. The last section of the video we get is all about combos and ultimates. We engage! And we pause. Using Davrin's taunt to gather up the Darkspawn and your warrior's grappling spear to pull in that pesky ranged attacker, we get all the Darkspawn nice and grouped up. This is where we get to see something that I wasn't aware of. Your Rook uses a rune, specifically one called Crystallize. This is a part of what you selected in opening the combat trailer as a warrior and is part of how you customize your playstyle. There are 3 equipable runes that provide different types of utility, control, or damage, and all 3 can be cycled through in combat as we see here. Honestly, kind of makes me think of basically Witcher 3 and their rune system. Finally, we direct Lucanus to use Eviscerate to detonate a combo that strikes this whole gathered up frozen group we've got, and the results are... pretty solid. Pretty solid, but nothing compared to the next thing we do, which is essentially the ultimate that we get by basically just being part of combat and gradually gaining that ultimate ability. This just looks like it feels good to unleash. Once we have devastated our foes with the ultimate, we still realize that there's still a shit ton of Darkspawn. So we see a very long pause, setting up multiple attacks. It looks like you can queue up 3 abilities at once on different targets if you so choose. Queue up one companion, the other companion, and yourself. We get an extended look toward the end that shows all of this in motion, including the use of the environment blowing up barrels and such, even getting some resources from said barrels. Combat looks fluid and fun, though I will say after watching this reveal, I'm thinking this game may lean pretty heavily toward a controller versus a mouse and keyboard, because I feel like it'll just feel more intuitive. Someone is 100% going to prove me wrong on this though, and they're going to come out and be like, yeah, no, I play Elden Ring with mouse and keyboard all the time. What are you doing? It's gonna happen. But what are my thoughts on this, on this combat reveal, on the combat of Dragon Age, the Veilguard as a whole, now that we've gotten to see more than just level 1 combat with no companions? Honestly, it looks good. It's got more pausing and more tactical elements than I originally thought it was gonna have, and some of the things that I even read about sounded cool, but I didn't know how they would work in practice. I think in general, The combat looks pretty damn good. It looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. It is definitely a departure from other Dragon Age games, but every Dragon Age game has been a departure from other Dragon Age games. It's just, that is like the nature of this series, is a series of constant changes. Oh, maybe this one won't even stick either, but for now, it looks like a game that's going to be a lot of fun to play and can have a lot more satisfying tactical pause moments than I originally thought there would. The action combat definitely looks a lot involved, a lot of APM, a lot of actions per minute, and because you'll be having to dodge. Like, there's a bunch of times where you see all these ground things, all these ground things you have to dodge out of, attacks that you have to block, and all these different ways that you're engaging with the game. So it's going to be pretty involved. Not to mention all of the tactical side of looking for vulnerabilities, how to exploit things, buffs, debuffs, and then obviously queuing up your companion's abilities. But at the same time, if you want a leisurely jaunt through the game, a story-focused playthrough that is much less frenetic than this, I think that's where the difficulty stuff comes in, because you're going to have a very wide berth of difficulty, from completely invulnerable to where you can just listen to the story basically, to very hard, which I'm assuming is going to rely very heavily on manipulating of those states and making sure that you are setting up your companion's abilities in a way that makes sense, so that you're kind of chaining them together to work together with your companions to take down difficult foes. Overall, this reveal has me excited, genuinely excited. I mean, I don't think that's shocking, given like how I've pretty much been positive ever since the gameplay reveal video of the game. I think in general, there's a lot of stuff around Dragon Age, and a lot of it I think comes from this game is over 10 years old. BioWare had released a bunch of schlop right before this that's still tied to EA, which there's a lot of concerns, like legitimate concerns around this game, just because of where it's coming from. But we've got a series of wins here as far as I'm concerned. First, the fact that it's not going to be on the EA launcher, which that's just a win. Then the fact that we got the pre-order dates, and there's no bullshit. There's no day one DLC. There's nothing really like super like pushing you to go get this deluxe edition. And I keep going back to another game that I'm also really excited about, Space Marines 2. They have a $80 version that comes with a 5-day head start. That shit wasn't with Dragon Age, and that makes me happy, even though releasing on Halloween sucks. I love Halloween. I've got a skeleton right there. Of course I love Halloween. But I want to know what you think. Are you excited for this? Did this make things seem more fun to you? Or did it cement that maybe this game is not for you? Let us know down in the comment section. Just as always, don't be a dick. Just don't be a dick. That's it. Either way, whether this game is for you or not, you might want to take a look at this video right here, which has some of the other really exciting RPGs coming out in 2024 that is already out of date, because Avowed went and said, you know what, I'm gonna move to 2025. That you ruined my video. Cheers everybody, and have a wonderful day. I'll see you again soon.